Today we're looking at hiring and interviewing, and so since hiring is a much more fun and easier process, than firing people, one of the most important things we can do is ask good questions to get the correct information we need in order to see if they're a best fit for our school, the culture, and so on. And so I want to look at then some additional questions that I think were missed in those good and bad questions that we looked at. And so the three questions that I've picked out here would be, do you have any hobbies? If so, what are they and why do you enjoy them? If you are comfortable sharing one life experience that has changed how you view the world, we'd be excited to learn more about you. If a difficult problem presented itself, how would you deal with it? And so I'm going to go question by question and diagnose and look at in detail how each of these things fills a need that I think is important to know about a person during an interview. So this first question, do you have any hobbies? If so, what are they and why do you enjoy them? I think the why that this is important would be that hobbies are a good way to learn about people's interests. So the hobbies that people have can tell you a lot about the different things that they might enjoy, that they might be more likely to participate in specific clubs if you know ahead of time, like, oh, they like video games. So if they like video games, do you have a video game club on the campus? Or if they like photography, would they be interested in doing yearbook? So I don't think that you have to go about this in some sort of crazy way or roundabout way, right? Like, how do I get that information? Just be straightforward. I think that question is okay to ask. I wouldn't be afraid to ask just straight up, what are your hobbies? Why? And why do you enjoy them? And so since there's such a variety and there's a lot of needs at a school, I really think that that's useful information. The second question that I want to ask is, if you're comfortable sharing one life experience that changed how you view the world, we'd be excited to learn more about you. And the reason that I think this is so important, the why for this, is that it shows that a person is able to go through something and be changed. It also shows that how flexible they might be or inflexible they might be, or how resilient they are. Now, you do want to be careful, I think, about how you get the question and how you ask the question, because I don't want people to feel threatened, so you would want to word it in a non-threatening way. And you would also want to allow people to opt out if they don't feel comfortable sharing that something in their life, that led to some change. And that's okay. It shouldn't be about whether or not they are going to be accepted. This is just a question to gain more information and maybe some insight into their ability to be flexible, but isn't really a necessity. The third question that I want to ask is, if a difficult problem that you are unsure of how to deal with presented itself, how would you deal with it? And so, why? I think this one's a pretty straightforward why. Because I want to know how people think. I want to know how you would go through the process of dealing with a problem that you may not know how to deal with. And that's always going to happen in every job. And no matter what circumstances, even if you know everything there is to know about something, you're going to be confused at some point and need to know, how do I deal with this problem that I don't know? And so some ideas about how that you could go about asking this. Well, I think there's really kind of two ways. You can, ask kind of like the question that I asked, which is, how would you deal with a problem that you didn't know how to deal with? Or the second way would be more along the lines of giving an example, a specific problem that someone could deal with, and then having them explain how they would deal with it. So there are some ethical issues, maybe, and you can see my slide didn't quite print out the way it was supposed to. This was supposed to be a straight arrow from a question mark, and this was supposed to be a curly arrow from a question mark to represent a straightforward approach and a roundabout way. And so I think there's two ways of looking at these bad questions. Firstly, they're straightforward and to the point, with the intent of learning about an individual and how they will fit in a work environment. So I think that's one way of looking at them. The second way of looking at the bad questions would be that these questions are an attempt to weed out people through discriminatory practices. And I think because we live in a world that hides intentions behind a curtain, and individuals will always, assume the negative instead of the positive. That's why there's an ethical issue. And so we want the answers to these questions, but we have to avoid being accused of asking them. So we skirt around those topics and hope we aren't caught, which to me kind of makes the second viewpoint all the more true.